In our last upload, I put something at the end of the video. You know how I do the subscriber threats, like subscribe or subscribe or else, however it goes. In that upload of that bike, when we put all the Ritchey parts on it, I wrote, subscribe or I won't fix the fatal flaw of the Rawnstercross. Now, I don't know if you subscribed or not. That's neither here nor there. If you support the channel on Patreon, you already know where this is going because, well, I made a post discussing whether or not I should actually fix it. Jeez. But I think now, for today's subject, for today's talking point while we go out and ride bikes on this glorious spring day, we're going to talk about what exactly that fatal flaw that needs remedy actually is. Choo! For the last like 5 or so years, we've been happily toying around, riding, tinkering, doing everything we can with the Rawstercross without so much as like a peep of complaint. I don't think. I mean, there's 5 years worth of videos. Now, for those of you who may or may not know, this is a 2008 Specialized Tricross Sport frame with a Jamis Nova cyclocross fork. When I first built this thing, it had the original Specialized Tricross fork on it. It is literally the ugliest fork that has ever come into existence. I knew, because I'm an extremely vain person, that I would not want to ride this thing with that on it. So I didn't look at any numbers. I didn't look at anything whatsoever. And I made sure that this Jamis fork made it on because it was going to make the bike look so much better than any other Tricross in the world. That stands true to today. There is a reason that you see people emulating this Tricross build across the world. How big does my head look right now? Now, what might you think that resulted in? Looking at no numbers for fork length and fork offset, rake, as most people would. A healthy footful of toe overlap, which is funny that I'm only today, this week even, finally admitting that it's truly like a flaw, a problem. Because for the last 5 years of riding this thing, doing everything I've always done with every bike, especially this one, it's never even popped into my head. And I kind of put it down to and place the blame on the Tracklacross bike itself. Or just like the fact that the channel has grown to a point, afforded more opportunities to ride other bikes, be away from the Rawnstercross a little bit longer than I normally would, get accustomed to bikes that just have zero toe overlap whatsoever, and then forget all the muscle memory, everything that I had learned to do to become totally, utterly, completely accustomed to all of the quirks and flaws that this bike has had, and that I've like just subconsciously done without a thought and not realized that there was a problem. And since we've done a couple things to it, I'm on it more often and I've been trying to do the same sort of things and I'm constantly hitting my foot. I'm like, oh my God, this is like the last flaw. This is it. We gotta fix it. Okay, let's keep riding a little bit and then we're gonna get like kind of nerdy and techie and talk about numbers and There's a guy over there on a KLR doing literally the exact same thing I'm doing. Playing off-road is not only popular in the pedal cycle world or the motorcycle world, it's everywhere. Everybody wants to be off-road away from everybody right now. Okay, so let's talk about some numbers a little bit, shall we? Thankfully, Specialized and Jamis both are pretty good for keeping all of the records of their sizing, their geometry, and part spec of all their bikes from basically, like, I'm gonna go ahead and say 2005 onward. It's really bright. I'm gonna put my sunglasses on. I've always said I do not know where that fork came from. Like, I know it came from my friend Ian, and I know it's a Jamis fork, but like, I know nothing else about it besides that. And in these moments of reflection where I thought I could easily just swap out that fork for an Easton one I had in the shed at home that I was gonna do at the same time as the bar, stem, seat post, and saddle, I was like, well, before I start like digging into this and putting an Easton fork that does not have a drilled fork crown for a cable hanger, maybe I should check to make sure that they're actually different. So a quick Google search, 2008, 2009 Jamis cyclocross, brought up literally their brochure. I just looked for the cyclocross bike, saw that it had exactly the same fork on that I have, and I looked at its geometry. What's it got? 45 millimeters of rake. Okay, what's the Easton one got? 45. And then it hit me, I was like, geez, I kind of wanted to like treat this thing at some point in its life to like one of the Ritchey carbon forks. What do they have for a rake? 45. They're all kind of the same price. What is the rake of like an Envy fork if you can get your hands on it? 45. Uh-oh. What's the stock rake that was on this bike originally? I don't even know what size it is. So a 54 of the Tricross and a 56 of the Tricross both use different rake forks. The 54 uses a 49 millimeter rake fork, while the 56 uses a 47 millimeter rake fork. I did some measurements on my frame. It is indeed a 54, therefore should, design-wise, use a 49 millimeter rake fork. Hard to find. What I did find, however, is Whiskey makes a 47 millimeter rake fork that is cantilever equipped, along with it being straight steer. It is the correct fork for a 56, and it's the, well, slightly less correct, but more correct fork for my 54. So it's like the best option for getting the front wheel out a little further for a really good looking aftermarket, quick release, cantilever, straight steer fork. Is it absolutely, utterly, completely out of this world ridiculous to even think about getting? Yes, there's other stuff I'm gonna do to try and fix the toe overlap problem. 2 millimeters isn't gonna do it. I know that, you know that, but I already have something else that will help solve the problem. It's at home. We'd have to go there for me to show it to you. So maybe that's what we'll do, but I'm gonna keep riding a little bit. Holy heck, I like this bike. So as I was saying, I want to make it clear that it is not lost on me that 2 millimeters, like 2 millimeters of rake difference isn't going to be like a, well, it isn't going to do much, let's just say that. And in thinking about that while researching what the rake of the stock fork was versus what I have versus what's available, it came into my mind to like look up, were people originally with the Tricrosses having toe overlap issues? So I Googled that. Yes, people were seeing toe overlap issues at low speeds, which in a way sort of makes sense because we're only 4 millimeters less rake with this Jamis fork, and we're getting probably like, I mean, the tire hits here on the shoe at the worst point. 1.5 centimeters, so 15 millimeters of like really hard, like bad foot placement, front wheel hit the toe box. These are way too big for me. If I had the proper size of these where my toe wasn't like here, there would be substantially less toe overlap, and maybe that is so here's where we are going to gain the majority of our clearance from. These 165 millimeter long Shimano 105 cranks. These were donated to the channel a while ago, and they donned the Poseidon X for a good little while. See right now, these SRAM cranks are 172.5. We jumped down to a 165, nice short crank on there, and we buy ourselves about, is that 7.5 millimeters, and then we put a fork on with a little bit more rake, 2 millimeters of rake. Every millimeter counts when you're trying to do stuff like this, and you've bought yourself an extra about 10 millimeters of clearance. If I stop wearing these shoes that are too big for me, well, we just might be full lock steering at slow speeds territory. And that would take this thing from just absolutely fantastic to total and utter perfection. It just took 5.5 years to do it. But I really want to do it, and I don't want to miss out on anything. So anyway, I ordered that stuff. I'm trying to just make myself feel a little better about it. There's also the small possibility that it actually won't fully fix the toe overlap problem. And that will suck. But it'll look sick.